Hello, and welcome to my take on the quote-unquote genetically accurate trend of taking warriors' family trees and trying to figure out how to make them make any sense at all. You already know this from the title, but I'll be going over Firestar's family tree today. Not the whole tree though, because that's every character in the books, and I'm not doing that. So that you aren't stuck waiting for a distant relative of his who's never gonna show up, here's a list of every cat who's gonna get their genes gened today. Another few things before we start. One, this isn't really a genetics lecture, as I've already made a whole series on that, and I don't want to bore the folks who've seen it. Thus, this video expects a baseline familiarity with simple genetics terminology, but I'll explain the more advanced terminology, and I'll talk about what certain alleles mean and their inheritance models and all that. So, kind of an intermediate level video. I'm happy to answer questions in the comments, but you should watch episode 1 of my genetics series first if your question is just about basic genetics concepts. 2, this video isn't just going to be me going down a list of cats and telling you their entire genomes. Rather, I want to walk you through my process of creating a family tree, which means that we'll be jumping around a lot. It also means that we won't be covering every single locus of every single cat. You don't need me to tell you that Crowfeather isn't orange, you can intuit that. With that, let's begin. We're starting with the man of the hour, Firestar. I'm a huge fan of the Somali Firestar headcanon. It's a great way to make him still fiery red in appearance without giving him any ginger in his genome, since Somalis have really high rufusing. Basically, rufusing makes a black-based cat more reddish. It's a polygenetic gradient trait, so you can't do Punnett squares for it. Essentially, we're making Firestar a brown tabby, aka black agouti, but we're raising his rufusing so high that he looks ginger. We're also removing as many visible stripes as possible by making him ticked, which, while technically a pattern of agouti due to being an agouti modifier, has minimal to no striping. But obviously he can't be a purebred because my nutmeg isn't a Somali. He looks like one, though, but he just happens to take after his dad a lot. By the way, you're gonna see me continue this extreme rufusing from Jake down to Squirrelflight. It's not impossible, but it is very unlikely. But it's also not impossible, so I'm doing it. Anyway, Firestar's black, and he's a ticked tabby, and he's a long hair. Ticked is an incompletely dominant allele where the homozygotes have basically no stripes and the heterozygotes have a few stripes. It's also epistatic to mackerel and classic, the other two simple stripe patterns. Mackerel and classic share the MC locus, while ticked is on a separate locus. Epistatic means that whatever it does covers up and hides what a different locus does, so if a cat has any capital TAs on their ticked locus, it'll overwrite the MC locus completely, and the cat will be ticked no matter what's on MC. This is a problem. I want Firestar to be totally stripeless, which means making him a homozygote. But it's more important to me that Leafpool is mackerel, which means she needs her dad to be able to give her a little TA allele. Otherwise, the capital TA would make her ticked instead. And quite frankly, I also see nutmeg as non-ticked, so I'm gonna have to settle for making him heterozygous. Other than that, all we know is he has at least one capital B allele for black and 2 recessive little L's for long hair, and of course, at least one capital A for agouti, since he's a tabby and agouti makes cats into tabbies. Let's get to Sandstorm. I've noticed in a lot of genetically accurate warrior stuff, Sandstorm tends to trip people up because they make her cream, which is the dilution of ginger, and thus, breeding with a black-based boy, either she or her kids also have to have some kind of ginger. The decision becomes Torty Sandstorm or Torty Squirrelflight in Leafpool. I am doing neither! There's a very easy solution to this problem. Sandstorm is fawn now. Boom. Done. She has 2 B1 alleles for cinnamon, and then 2 little d's for dilution. Diluted cinnamon is fawn. It looks very similar to cream. She's also a mackerel tabby, so we'll give her a capital A to make her a tabby, and then at least one capital MC to make her mackerel. Capital MC codes for mackerel, the stripy stripes. Recessive to this is little MC, which codes for classic blotchy stripes. But as mentioned, if there are any capital TAs in the genome, it overwrites the macro locus completely and the cat is just ticked. Since Sandstorm is going to breed with a cat who's ticked, for formality, here are her 2 little TA alleles. And she's a short hair, so at least one capital L. Now let's get on to their kids. So I want Squirrelflight to also be Rudy ticked. Rudy is just the fancy Somali word for this high rufusing on a black cat. I'm going to give her that black with her dad's capital B allele, and her mom is homozygous, so she has to have that B1 allele too. That makes Squirrel Flight capital B, B1. I'm also going to give her dad's capital TA, and again, mom is homozygous, so that makes Squirrel Flight capital TA, little ta. She's also heteroticked with some minor striping. But what does she have underneath the ticked? What's on her MC locus? She could get a capital MC from her mom, but can mom give her anything else? What's underneath her dad's ticked? I'm deliberately not deciding. I have an opportunity here, see. What with mom's dominance and dad's epistasis, there's a lot of unknown hidden genes. If I leave them blank for now, then later, if I want some kind of recessive allele to suddenly pop up somewhere, I can come up and stick it in here. Now we run into another problem. Both Squirrel Flight and Leafpool have low white on them. That means they're SW heterozygotes on the W locus. S codes for white patterns, and is codominant with W, which codes for no white patterns. I don't really envision either Firestar or Sandstorm with white on them, but I have to give at least one of them one S allele to give to their kids. I picked Sandstorm since I think it's less obvious on her paler fur, and because Firestar being fire-colored is, kind of important. Normally, I just give her a tiny locket on her chest, but since I'm only drawing heads, here's a little white on her face. Now we can give Squirrel Flight her white. She gets one W from Dad, and Mom tosses her that one S. In the books, this only manifests as a white paw, but again, I'm only drawing heads, so here's just a little white to show that it's there. Now I'm going to show you what I was talking about with those blanks. I want Squirrel Flight to be long hair like Dad, but Sandstorm is a short hair, which is dominant. Thankfully, I only have Sandstorm with one dominant capital L, and left the second allele blank. I'm now going to fill that in with a little L so she can pass that to Squirrel Flight, making her homozygous little L, aka long hair. That's Squirrel Flight. Let's cover Leafpool. This is another place it'd be great to have those blanks available if you wanted her to be a classic tabby, but I'm a basic bitch and I don't. I like macro Leafpool. She doesn't get her dad's high rufusing, but again, that's a gradient trait. She does get his capital B, as she's a brown tabby, which again is just a goatee black. Mom can still only give B1s. She gets capital MC from Mom. We don't know what she gets from Dad on the same locus, but it doesn't matter. And both parents give her their little TA, so there's no tick to overwrite it. Leafpool is short hair, so unlike Squirrel Flight, she gets Mom's capital L. However, Dad can only throw little L's since he's long hair, so Leafpool will be heterozygous on this locus. She's also, like her sister, going to get her Mom's S and Dad's W, so that she can have low white markings. In her case, she's a tuxedo. I don't know, and I don't think anyone knows, the actual probably hundreds, if not more, modifier alleles that create the exact shape and amount of white on a cat, and development is also almost certainly a factor, so I don't worry about white shape. If both parents have white markings, I'll generally try to make them similar, but Firestar could have fucking anything going on under there. Quick side note, we have no idea how cat eye color genetics works. I couldn't do Punnett squares if I wanted to. The only exception that's relevant here is that a cat generally can't have blue eyes unless they have white on them. So I'm just kind of going with whatever's canon or whatever I feel like choosing for the eye colors, with the caveat that I can't choose blue eyes without white. Cool? Cool. Moving on. I want to take a break from Descendants to talk Ancestors. I think it'd be really funny if Jake was someone's Somali who got out and that's why he's not fixed. His and Firestar's genes are basically identical, at least the ones that we know of. Sadly, because none of the kids he has with Quincer tabbies, we have to make an exception to Somali breed standards, which is giving him one single little A allele. I'm sticking to realism for inheritance models, but I can make an exception for breed standards. If this bothers you, though, here's an alternate story. He was sold as a quote-unquote purebred to someone who totally got scammed. There you go. If he has a canonical backstory, I don't want to hear it, and I don't care. Speaking of Quince, let's talk Quince. She's just solid blue. Cool. That's at least one capital B black, and two little D's since we're diluting that black to blue, and two little A's since she's not a tabby. She's also a short hair, so at least one capital L. She had kids with Jake, inadvisably. Ruby's just a blue short hair, same as Mom. We can take a capital B from either parent to make her black. In order for her to be dilute, though, she needs to be homozygous little d. Mom is already homozygous, so she can only pass little d's. Dad isn't, so we're just gonna make him carry one. Jake is now heterozygous capital D little d on the dilution locus, aka he's carrying dilution, and he gives that little d to Ruby. Ruby is also going to be a short hair, but she's definitely heterozygous here, because Dad can only give her his long hair little L. Socks is also black but not dilute. Again, one capital B from either parent suffices for black, and Dad's capital D will stop him from being dilute, but he will be carrying it since Quince can only give little Ds. He's getting the same short hair treatment as Ruby. Then we run into another problem. Socks is also a tuxedo cat, so he has low white, which means that one of his parents needs to give him an S. So which parent is going to have to get some non-canonical white? I've already fucked up Jake's purebredness enough, and I want him to look like Firestar, so I'll give it to Quince. Dad can only give W's since he has no white. We've made Quince an SW heterozygote. She gives her W to Ruby, keeping her white free, and her S to Socks, making him a tuxedo. Now for the comments section to catch fire. Let's do Scourge. Yes, I pronounce it Scourge. No, it's not because I don't know how Scourge is pronounced. I didn't hear Scourge, the actual non-name word, pronounced as Scourge until Warriors fans started correcting people. Maybe it's regional, I have no idea, but I'm saying Scourge. Now that I've said Scourge so many times it doesn't sound like a word anymore, here's his phenotype. Black short hair with low white, same as Socks. His genotype matches, but his phenotype differs, and his only white is on one paw, though again, I'm feigning white on his face just for the sake of the video. I know I said don't worry about white-shaped polygenes, but also it is very cute to think that Scourge and Squirrelflight inherited the same one white paw alleles. When I draw them full body, I choose the same paw to make white for this reason. With that entire shebang done, we are back down to Leafpool, or rather, her shitty ex-boyfriend Crowfeather. He is a solid black short hair. You know the drill, capital B black, capital L short hair, we don't know what he's carrying yet, and homozygous little a to make him solid. Unfortunately, no white means he can't have blue eyes, so green it is. Jayfeather needs to be a blue mackerel tabby short hair. Some people give him white, I'm going to have to so that he can have his blue eyes. Crowfeather can only give W since that's all he has, and Leafpool will give him her S. Mackerel is easy since Leafpool has both a capital A and a capital MC. Jayfeather gets one of each. He also gets one of Crowfeather's little a's because that's the only thing Crowfeather can give him, making him heterozygous on a goatee. We don't know what Crowfeather has on the MC locus yet, though. Jayfeather's also going to get at least one capital B from either parent for black. To make him blue, he also needs 2 little D's, which means both parents have to be carriers. Thankfully, Sandstorm is already dilute and gave Leafpool her little D, which Leafpool is going to give to Jayfeather. Crowfeather can also be carrying little D. It's carried so it doesn't affect him, so we can make up whatever recessives we want. Perfect. Jayfeather done. Hollyleaf is a solid black long hair. This is a similar situation, but first, capital B. Just like Jayfeather's dilution, Leafpool also already has a little L from her long-hair dad, and Crowfeather can be carrying little L too, that's fine. So Hollyleaf can be homozygous recessive and thus long hair. Crowfeather gives Hollyleaf one of his little A's, but now we need Leafpool to do the same if we want Hollyleaf to not be a tabby. That capital A Leafpool has right now would have goatee her ass right to Tabby Town if she got it. Leafpool's mom was dilute, so she had a dilute to pass. Leafpool's dad was long hair, so he had a long hair to pass, but both of Leafpool's parents are tabbies. So where's she gonna get that little A from? Coming in with the steel chair, it's Jake! He passes his little A to Firestar, who passes it to Leafpool, who passes it to Hollyleaf, who finally gets to express it. Granted, it could have also come from Nutmeg or from Sandstorm or... Look, recessives are just really easy to kind of toss in when you want one, as long as you leave room for them. So, I'm not really going to go into body type at all in this video, since it's mostly just polygenes, but I do want to say one thing briefly. In gradient traits, it is entirely possible for an offspring to fall out of the range of either parent. But I think Lion Blaze is a bit extreme for that. You could call it a mutation. Personally, I call it Starkland or his powers or whatever beefing him up, and we're just gonna have to accept that magic is affecting Lion Blaze's phenotype in this dumb fantasy series about cat governments. Jokes aside, Lion Blaze is super interesting genetically. How are you gonna make this ginger/cream cat out of these 2 black-based bitches, Murphy? You're asking your screen right now. I am not. For you see, I am going to pull the same trick twice. Sandstorm, who is Fawn, gave Leafpool a B1 allele for cinnamon and a little D for dilution. We've decided that Crowfeather also has a little D, which is a great sentence and I'm glad I said it. We've also decided that I don't give a shit about Crowfeather's family tree, and more importantly that recessives can hang out totally unknown in a lineage for countless generations. Thus it is completely within reason to say that Crowfeather is also carrying a B1 allele. Lion Blaze, like his grandma dearest, is a fawn tabby. Personally, I like using thin mackerel stripes to make a cat look smaller, and big, blotchy, classic stripes to make a cat look bigger. My Lion Blaze will be the first classic tabby on this family tree. We have no idea about Crowfeather stripe DNA because we can't see any of it on account of that little A homozygosity. Except that he isn't homozygous for ticked, because if he was, then both tabby kiddos would be ticked. Crowfeather can be heterozygous or homozygous recessive on MC, and it doesn't matter. All it would affect is whether Jayfeather has to carry little MC or not. But Jayfeather doesn't have any kids, so we don't need to know that. For Lion Blaze, Crowfeather just needs one little MC. Where did Leafpool get her little MC then? I mean, really, it could be from anywhere. Sandstorm could be carrying it next to her mackerel. Firestar could be homozygous for all we know. We don't know his MC locus at all. I already know that I want Princess to be classic too, so let's just say Firestar is the one carrying it. Like Crowfeather, we can't see it, and Mom's already giving the other kid mackerel, so it doesn't matter if he's homo or heterozygous here. So now that we've gotten Mom and Dad's MC loci sorted, they each give one little MC to Lion Blaze and make him a classic tabby. Phew! Oh, and he's a long hair, so same process as Hollyleaf for that. I'm cutting this off here instead of continuing Lion Blaze's lineage for a couple of reasons. 1, there's a lot of them. 2, I don't care. And 3, his son eventually mates with Ivypool, and I'm not doing that to this family tree. So instead, let's cover Nutmeg. She's a brown tabby tux in the books. I think she's a short hair and a mackerel. So capital B black, capital A goatee, capital MC mackerel, heterozygous SW low white, and heterozygous L locus so she can give Firestar a little L. I'm also giving her that little MC I mentioned, which she gives to Firestar, which Firestar gives to Leafpool, which Leafpool gives to Lion Blaze. Princess is phenotypically similar to her mom, except that she's both a long hair and a classic tabby. Nutmeg and Jake both give Princess the same little L's they give to Firestar. We also decided that Nutmeg has the little MC she gave to Firestar, so she gives it to Princess too. We don't know what Jake has going on under all the ticked yet, so we can easily give him at least one little MC. Do we know what Somalis carry under ticked? Somalis are always homozygous for ticked, so they have to have something under there. Someone get their Somali gene tested, I'm curious now. The rest is simple. She gets her capital B and capital A from either parent, and one of Jake's W's and Nutmeg's S. Now, Cloudtail is just solid white. Solid white, aka white dominant, is represented by WD, and it's dominant, as the name suggests. It's also epistatic. If a cat has even just one WD allele, the cat is just totally white, no matter what's going on anywhere else. It also shares the W locus with both W and S. Obviously, Nutmeg isn't solid white, so she isn't the one passing on the WD. That would be Cloudtail's dad, who thus must be all white. He's not really a character, so I don't know how to draw him. If he is in a later book, I don't care. And he's literally just white, so here. What is he underneath? We don't know, which is a surprise tool that'll help us later. We don't know if Daddy Farquaad is homo or hetero for WD, but we do know that Cloudtail is heterozygous because Nutmeg isn't white. She can pass either S or W since she has both, but either one would be invisible on him since WD is dominant, so I'll leave it blank. Having white opens him up to the possibility of blue eyes, which he has. That had a decently high chance of causing deafness, but he dodged it. I've decided for simplicity that Farquaad is also a long hair. Both parents can only give Cloudtail long hair alleles, which is perfect because he is that. He's mates with Brightheart, who I'm not going to play any silly games with, this time someone really is just Ginger. Ginger is sex-linked, meaning it's on the X chromosome. It's also co-dominant, so having only one capital O and one little o would make it torty. Brightheart has XX chromosomes and is just Ginger, so she has 2 capital O's. My designs go back and forth, but let's say this time Brightheart is a mackerel, so that's capital MC. She also has high white. Low white means under 50% of the cat is white. High white means over 50% of the cat is white. Low white cats are hetero SW, and high white cats are homo SS. Thus, Brightheart must be homozygous on this locus. And she's a long hair too, so she's also homozygous recessive. I could have sworn when I was a kid that Brightheart's eye was green, but Warriors Wiki says it's blue, so I guess it's blue. That's fine genetically, she has white. I guess I just remembered it wrong. Huh. Anyway, their daughter White Wing is super easy. She gets daddy's single WD, so she can be white, and homozygous mommy can only give her an S to carry. 2 homozygous recessive parents equals homozygous recessive kid, since that's all they can pass. That means White Wing will be a long hair. And that's all we know about her. For now. Who the fuck is Birchfall? He's described as a light brown tabby, so he's got that capital B and that capital A. Let's call him Mackerel, that's capital MC. I envision him short hair, that's a capital L. Cool, let's move on to their kids. Ivypool is a silver mackerel tabby with high white, and I see her as a short hair. So there's already a lot going on here. The easiest thing to do is make her short hair. She gets that short hair inducing capital L from Dad, and White Wing makes her heterozygous on this locus because she can only give little L's. Second easiest is mackerel tabby. She can get both capital A and capital MC from Dad. But then we have high white. Remember, that requires SS homozygosity. So we'll just give Birchfall a tiny splash of white. He's SW now. He and White Wing can both pass their S alleles onto Ivypool, letting her have all that white. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. I didn't say she was gray, aka blue, which is dilute black. I said she was silver. Silver is the result of the capital I inhibitor acting on a tabby. It makes the hairs between the stripes a very light silver, but it doesn't affect the color of the stripes. Ivypool stripes are going to stay black. She's getting that capital B from Birchfall. But wait, I hear my knowledgeable viewers cry. Brightheart has 2 capital O's, and those bitches are sex-linked. You are so right, and this is going to be so much fun. So before we hit Ivypool, it didn't really matter what Cloudtail or White Wing were underneath their white dominant, because the whole lineage was just getting epistasis, so we couldn't see it. Now we have a cat whose color is visible, and thus going to be affected by the previous generations. In order for Ivypool to be black-based with no ginger, she needs to have 2 little O's. Birchfall is easy, he has no ginger, and since he's XY, he just has the 1 little O to pass. White Wing, on the other hand, can't be homozygous little o, because her mom is homozygous capital O. Brightheart can only give White Wing a capital O. That's okay, because White Wing is also XX, so she gets a second allele from her dad. And we're in luck, because Nutmeg is the opposite of Brightheart. She only has little O's, because she has no ginger. She gives Cloudtail her little O, which he only has 1 of because he's XY, and then he gives that to White Wing. This makes White Wing's underlying genotype WDS on the white locus and capital O little o on the ginger locus. Underneath her white dominant, White Wing is either a tabico or a calico, depending on her agouti locus. Then she can give Ivypool her little o, letting Ivypool stay ginger-free. Then we run into our next problem, which has another fun solution. Birchfall doesn't have the inhibitor allele that causes silver, and neither does Brightheart. Inhibitor is dominant, so we can't just say fuck it and make him carry it. Only recessive alleles can be carried. So, how can we make Ivypool silver?
It's a surprise tool that will help us later.
This guy can have anything! He has our capital I, hidden underneath the epistatic white dominant. He gives it to Cloudtail, on whom it is also invisible, who gives it to White Wing, who gives it to Ivypool. Birchfall isn't silver, so he can only pass the non-inhibitor allele, little I. That means Ivypool is heterozygous on the inhibitor locus. Going back to White Wing's hidden phenotype, that means she's either a silver tabico or a calico smoke, depending on her agouti locus. See, when a tabby has at least 1 capital I, it makes them silver. But when a non-tabby has at least 1 capital I, it makes them a smoke. Remember that for later. Ivypool has blue eyes, which is totally possible because of all that white. Whew, she was so fun to figure out, man. A Dovewing is going to have some similar tricks going on. I love blue smoke Dovewing. We'll need Dad's capital B for black, yoink, and of course, both of their little O's. She's also a long hair, so let's say Birchfall carries little L, and since White Wing's also long hair, each parent passes 1 of those. Done. Easy. Now we need her to be dilute. Literally any of these people could be carrying dilute. Birchfall already has a capital D to keep him non-dilute, so now he's carrying little d. For this, White Wing could be homo little d, or she could be hetero capital D little d. This is because there's no reason Brightheart can't carry little d next to her capital D, just like Birchfall. And Cloudtail's the same. Nutmeg isn't dilute, but is she carrying little d? Did she give it to Cloudtail? What's Farquaad got going on dilution-wise? No idea, and that's good news for us. White Wing gets at least 1 little d. It doesn't really matter where it's from, because there's so many equally plausible possibilities, and White Wing only needs the 1 little d. She can be homo or heterozygous, and it doesn't matter. This is because Ivypool still gets her capital D from Birchfall, regardless of what White Wing has going on. So now Dovewing's blue. Let's make sure she's solid. Again, we have epistasis and recessive alleles to thank for making this super easy. Birchfall is heterozygous on the A locus now, and passes on to Dovewing his little a. White Wing has at least 1 little a too, could have been from either parent since it's recessive. Done. Now, I don't like giving Dovewing white. I don't see her with any white, but White Wing has to be WDS, and Dovewing clearly isn't white dominant. She can get a W from Birchfall, but White Wing has to pass on that S. I'll just give her a tiny bit of white. Like Sandstorm, I'd have this be a tiny locket or a single toe, but this video's just faces, so here's a little beauty mark. Green eyes are always an option. The presence of white also opens up the possibility of blue eyes. This is an endless battle that has fallen many a Warriors fan, and I am currently backed against a wall with no choice but to pick a side and reap the consequences. I'm going to go with green eyes since I like the headcanon that they turn blue when she uses her powers, and if you want to, you can come to my house and kill me for it or whatever, but you'll have to get here before the guys who are mad that I pronounce Scourge weird do. Her Forever Man Tigerheart Star is just another brown tabby, and I'm making him classic. Capital B, capital A, 2 little MCs. I want him to resemble his namesake, so he's also going to be long hair, homozygous little L, just like Dovewing. Because his mate is dilute, I'll also list his dilute locus, for now just a single capital D. They have a lot of kids together, but quite frankly I only care about one of them, and that's Shadowsight. Shadowsight is a black smoke long hair, which is good, because both of his parents being long hairs, he doesn't really have a choice there. As for black, that capital B can come from either parent. He's got his mom's capital I. Like Birchfall, Tigerheart Star isn't silver, so he only has little eyes to pass, making Shadowsight heterozygous like his mom. If we want him to be solid, then he needs to be homozygous recessive on the Agouti locus, aka 2 little A's. Mom isn't a tabby, so she only has little A's to give. Tigerheart Star can carry, making him heterozygous on the Agouti locus. And lastly, I don't want him to have any white. Tigerheart Star is a totally whiteless WW homozygote, and Dovewing is SW. Shadowsight got 1 W from each parent, and those W's in his genome are literally the only W's in his entire life. And that's sad. Anyway, that completes Firestar's family tree. Woo! If I left it blank, that's because it doesn't matter. I'm not covering Squirrelflight's bio kids because they'd be super boring. Just one of them is a smaller Squirrelflight, and one of them is a smaller Bramblestar. They're both black-based tabbies. We already know Squirrelflight is hetero and ticked. Woo, who cares, not me. That was a lot of work, so it'd be a long time before I do another one. But I do want to do another one, so let me know whose tree you'd want to see next. Personally, I'm thinking Blue Star or Tiger Star. I can do some insane things to Hawkfrost. If the gene talk in this video was confusing, I have a series where I educate on cat genetics, so you should watch that and then watch this again with a better understanding. For the rest of you, I hope that all the jumping around made sense, and I hope that it gave you a good idea of the way that I approach creating genetic accuracy in family trees. You don't really need to do Punnett squares all the time. Punnett squares are mainly for predicting probability, so when you already know what you want the cats to look like, you can just kinda track the lineages of specific alleles and see where they end up, as long as you know how to read the resulting genomes. But most importantly, I hope it was fun to watch. Bye-bye!